Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk a little bit about The Last of Us 2, a little bit more about that. But before we dig into that, let's do our daily aesthetics. And I promise this is actually related to what I have to say about this game. So everything that you really need to know about the aesthetics of human beauty is summed up in this picture right here with the legend Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you'd shot this photo yesterday, it would make just as much sense as when it was shot back in the 70s. This is timeless. And it's timeless for a couple of reasons. First of all, it shows the beauty of the male form in its proportion, its symmetry, and also in what creates the beauty and the aesthetic of the male form, which is that it is functional. The male form in its most aesthetic appeal is directed towards what the man does, which is he acts upon the world. Therefore, it's always referencing strength. The female form is something of an inversion of that. It's not necessarily weakness, but it's softness, it's nurturing. Symmetry is just as much a part of that, so symmetry is always going to be part of the aesthetics of beauty, but it's female symmetry functions along different lines, whereas the male symmetry is about the lines from the shoulders down to the hips to muscular legs. A woman's is more about the pull from the waist to the larger hips. So the symmetry is different, but there's symmetry in both of those. And those forms that we just sort of innately recognize as beautiful are very important to us. And beauty occurs in both the male and female forms, but it is different for each of them. I promise that I will be going somewhere with this in a minute. Now, let's have some more daily aesthetics. Let's just have some female beauty here. I like this pose a lot too, like the other one yesterday, because it's not one of these obvious glamour poses. It is a pose, but the photographer is actually fairly clever here because the model's face is in shadow and sort of inclined forward at a little bit of a at an angle that confers a demure nature. Most of her face is in an even shadow, which makes her look beautiful and young. And of course, she has a small and slender body, and the contrast between the light and dark is going to accentuate that, as well as her more relaxed shoulder pose, which is not trying to accent her specific body parts. It's just her standing, and that makes her seem a little bit more real and a little bit more like a real person, the way a person would actually look if you were to talk to them, somebody you might talk to at a party. And that look of that inclined head really conveys a lot of interesting emotion, which is why I think this little stock photo is actually quite appealing. Now, why am I talking about this? Let's hop in and actually talk about the subject of the video, The Last of Us 2. Now, Metacritic score has gone down. It was 100 at one point, I think, and I think we've had a whopping three mixed reviews from the critics. Notice never what's included in critic reviews are critics who actually know what they're doing. Independent critics are never included. It's only people that are published by magazines. And you have to remember, video game magazines are there to support the industry. They're not really there to provide a lot of consumer information. That burden really falls to YouTubers who really can't get a job with them because they would not be giving a score of 100 to The Last of Us 2. They would be giving a more honest score. Even if it is something that they liked, it probably wouldn't be 100. Now we look at the other side of this, user score 3.3. I've talked about this before. Is this actually a 3.3 game? And the answer is probably no. And what we're actually seeing here is what I call rate hate or overrate hate, which is when something is intensely overrated by some established authority or just some general sense of popularity. The tendency for people who dissent from that opinion is to be very extreme. So when people are putting in their 3.3 user scores, when they're putting zeros down here, is this game actually a zero? The answer is no. For me, and this is the way Metacritic runs, pretty much anything 5 and below is failure. It's an F, just like if you were at school, if you got 50% or below, you got an F. So those scores are really reserved for games that are in various stages of extreme dysfunction. They don't function as a game. They're not fun. They don't really work. So this game could totally be in that range. Probably not zero. Zero would be like an asset flip game that crashes your computer and sends like child porn to the FBI on your behalf. That would be like a zero game. A 1 game would be an asset flip that is one open level with nothing to do. That would be a 1. There's nothing, there's nothing good about that other than it turns on and you're able to maybe operate something in an environment slightly. And as you add more components to a game, fully fleshed out gameplay, actual design to levels, design to characters, so actual art, actual aesthetics, obviously you're going to get up into those higher ranges. Now, problem with Last of Us Part 2 is that most of the emphasis is on its story, not on its gameplay. And the gameplay could be okay, but from what I've seen, it looks like gameplay is less than 40% of the time spent in the experience. Meaning, if you were to play, if it's a 12-hour experience, you're playing 4 hours of you're playing 4 to 5 hours of gameplay and the rest is cutscenes. And if it's a 20-hour experience, you got like 5 or 6 hours of gameplay and the rest is cutscenes. Now there was like 12 hours worth of cutscenes in Final Fantasy 13, but it was a 100-hour game, so you're still looking at its 80% plus gameplay. That we used to call that final cutscene 13 because there were so many cutscenes. So this one's very heavily leaning on the cinematic aspects. And even if you were to remove explicit cutscenes and it's things where you could control the character, but it's a scripted encounter, that's still really a cutscene. So when you're emphasizing the story, if the story is not there or it upsets people, that's what's going to trigger those lower scores, even if other parts are good, like if it's high fidelity and things like that. So when people are putting in that 0, that is their vote for saying 100 is right out. This is not a 100 game. I have to put my vote in the extreme. I have to go the extreme opposite direction and descent to 0, just so that people are aware that this is not a 100 game. Giving a game a 100 is something that should be very, very rare. 100 game means it's flawless in every category and among the best that is possible in every single category, meaning the gameplay is the best, the aesthetics are the best, the presentation overall is the best, best soundtrack, everything's the best to get 100. If there's something off with any of those, it can't be 100 because it's not a flawless game. And that doesn't mean that 95 is not good. And I think if a lot of people were looking at this and they saw someone that was like, I really like this game, it's an 85. They might go, I thought it was garbage, but I could see someone maybe thinking it's an 85. 100 though, 100. A lot of people are not liking that 100 score. So of course the scrambling, and I've seen this from Forbes magazine, from all of the different rags that are out there, not just gaming media, is that people are rating it 0 because they don't like the LGBTQPRSWF Omega Epsilon Plus themes in it. No, that's not what it's about. But would they be wrong to be upset about that? That's number 2. So number 1, if the story is not functioning on a technical level, if they're making you kill the beloved characters from the previous franchise, that's not going to endear people to the story. They're not going to think that's a very good or interesting story. Likewise, aesthetics. I talked about aesthetics here. This is a very high fidelity game. Fidelity and aesthetics are not the same thing. Simply because something is rendered in extreme detail, like the sex scene, does not mean that it is beautiful. Beauty is something different from fidelity. A high resolution picture or a very intensely detailed painting of something which is grotesque is not something that is beautiful. Okay, so when I look at all of the gameplay footage that I've seen for The Last of Us 2 from the very beginning, I don't think it's a bad looking game, but I don't think it's an aesthetically interesting game to me. It's just very dark and gray for the most part. There is some green, and the attempt to make it very gritty and realistic, that's the effect they're going for. I'm not going to say that it's bad for them to go for that effect, but it doesn't produce something that is necessarily aesthetically beautiful. Now, what you do have in here is you do have a main character, I think it's Abby is the main character, who's tracking down and killing Ellie, or trying to kill Ellie. I don't think that's what happens at the end, but does kill Joel. If that spoiler upsets you, you shouldn't. You should know what you're getting into when you buy this. That's the whole point of why I'm talking about this. There is a sex scene between Abby and a dude who looks just like Neil Druckmann. That's what's in I watched it, so you don't have to watch it. It's very gross, and the reason it's gross is because it is ugly. The form of this main character is ugly. Why is it ugly? It's because she's trying to have not a woman's body, but trying to have a man's body. It looks like a woman it looks like Buck Angel, right? Buck Angel is a female to male transgendered pornographic actor. Okay, if you don't know who Buck Angel is, don't go searching for Buck Angel. Ye be warned. Okay, but you can see him clothed. He has the body of a man. And he has the body of a man because he takes testosterone, and he probably takes some other steroids too in order to have that more enhanced muscular look. So the body on this female character, who people were all upset that I called her trans. I was just going by the information I had weeks ago. But people are all upset about her, about me calling her trans when she has the body of a man. She has the body of a woman who's been taking testosterone and Winstrol. So, which makes you wonder, where's this person getting the test and the Winnie in this post-apocalyptic wasteland? Because that's not a natural body. A natural female body looks like this. This is a natural female body. Abby does not have a natural female body. This is why we find it repugnant, okay? So if you watched that portion of that sex scene, even though I warned you not to, and as soon as she takes her shirt off, you're looking at Arnold, right? Or maybe not Arnold, maybe like Frank Zane. Frank Zane had amazing aesthetics, but maybe someone a little smaller, right? Not quite at Arnold's level of intensity here. But you're looking at the torso of a muscular man, to the point where the female breast is not even recognizable. There's a large pectoral slab that hides any kind of mammary tissue that would make sense. And I've been told that she was modeled after a female bodybuilder, which would make sense. Female bodybuilders take Anavar, Winstrol, testosterone in a lot of cases if they're going for the big thing. It all depends like what is the current trend in female bodybuilding, even if there's even a Miss Olympia available, what the kind of trends are, whether it's like super masculine or it's only kind of masculine, right? But the point is that big drooping pectoral slab that bodybuilders have, this is from male hormones and turning your body into a male power, going out into the world kind of form. So we inherently recognize that form as being something that is not female because it doesn't naturally occur with females. Even the most elite athletes, and I've known some very elite athletes, do not have a man's body. They have a strong female body, does not look the way that this body looks, especially once you get the shirt off and you see that kind of weird muscularity. So the sex scene ends up looking like a gay sex scene, even though it's technically a heterosexual sex scene. As awkward and ugly as it is, it's ugly. And so if people are upset that they bought a game and they're seeing something ugly that's a result of this woke approach to aesthetics, they're not wrong to say that that's ugly and repugnant. They wanted to buy something which looked good. One of the things that you buy when you're buying something in visual medium is you're wanting something that is good to look at. And if you liked the aesthetics of the first game, and the first game had decent aesthetics, it had a good visual design, I thought, and it had great fidelity for the hardware that it was designed for, which is the PlayStation 3. I think it did a great job visually for what it was trying to present as far as its like gritty kind of aesthetic. But if you're expecting that and you get, drooping pectoral slabs and general over-the-top LGBTQP, omega, epsilon, whatever, kind of flying in your face, you're not wrong for not liking that. You buy a product with a certain expectation, and if it doesn't meet that expectation, you're not wrong for it not meeting the expectation. The way they set this up is that like they show you a bunch of repugnant, ugly garbage and call it LGBTQ, and then call you a bigot for not liking it. That's the way they set this up, so that any of their critics that say it's really gross, this sex scene is gross, and I didn't want to look at it, and it just felt awkward and cringy. Well, you're just a bigot for not liking that. It's like when people are saying, hey, you're a bigot if you don't date transgender women. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, you're a bigot for not having sex with transgender women. No. We want the form and the person to align. That's the way that we normally look at things. And indeed, the whole thing about trans is moving the physical form into that other space. That's why Buck Angel looks like a man. He takes male hormones and it gives him the appearance of a man. Ye be warned if you go searching for Buck Angel. So here's the big wrap-ups for this video. The rating, it's not truly a 3.3. It's probably more like a 5, if we're being honest. But people are rating it 0 because they know that 100 is right out. 10 out of 10 is no. They know that it's not that. There's no way that it's that. It would have to be flawless across the board for it to be 100 out of 100, 100%, 10 out of 10. In fact, I don't even know if my very favorite games would hit 100. They'd probably hit close. I'd probably say they're 95s, but there's always a couple of things. It's like, they could have done that one thing better and hit that 10 out of 10 in every category. So people know that that's way out of bounds. If they had been rating this a 6 or 7, you wouldn't see these people review bombing. So the people they're review bombing because they're bigots. It's like, no, don't believe that. They're review bombing because they thought the game was way overrated. And that's the main takeaway for this. And they're not wrong for not liking a bunch of woke garbage in a game that they really didn't have an expectation for that amount of it, given what was presented to them in the first game. So that's all I have to say about that. Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And I'll leave it here with some aesthetics for you, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a great one.